All right, well, welcome everyone to the July 27, I believe, Rules and Public Policy Committee meeting. It looks like I see Mary Jo, Eric Underwood, and Matt Miller Novak in attendance. All of Christian heads are showing on the screen. It sounds like that Ms. Hartman will not be with us at tonight's meeting. All right. I do not, as I mentioned unofficially previously, I do not have power and I do not have a copy of the agenda handy, but I do know some of the things that are real obvious. First, the previous meeting minutes. Unfortunately, this will be 2 months in a row that I have slacked those duties and have not completed them in order to present them for review and approval. Hopefully I'll get that taken care of in the not too distant future and everyone can review them and we'll be okay with that. Then I believe we had, we'll move right into old or unfinished business. And one of the first things that I recall was the charter, the revised charter hard copy. And I did verify today that the water drain and the internet storage facility location, etc., has the updated data or the updated verbiage for the charter. And I had already put that updated verbiage in the electronic file. And so I was ready to print, but I was just waiting until we had that officially on the web there on the available on the internet. So I do have that. I will complete those copies and share them to everyone at the committee, and or really, I guess if no one objects, I would just go ahead and present that semi-official copy to all of council. And then if everyone is okay, we can just motion to let that be the official hard copy version, and we can make copies, make them available at the city center. And I guess a PDF version can be made available online. Any thoughts on that? I don't hear any thoughts. Either you don't care, I mean, you care, but you're muted, or you have no concerns about this matter. All right, well, I'll go ahead and make sure that there's a shared copy of the updated charter for everyone, and we can officially, I'll present that from the committee to the council floor for a motion and approval to make it the official hard copy at the next council meeting.
Jim, I have a question. I'm sorry. This shared copy is going to be in, I'm asking for a location. Is it going to be?
Yeah, I would imagine
a physical copy or an electronic copy, I guess.
It will initially be electronic, and then if administration or whomever thinks we need to have an actual paper copy, or 3 or 5 or whatever at the city center, then I would imagine that would make sense. So a few paper copies could be available, or as long as administration understands that if someone requested one, then they would have to print one if there isn't one available there at the city center. But I would initially share the electronic copy through our Google Docs shared application.
Thank you.
All right.
Got it.
I think one of the next things may have been changes to some of the existing ordinances. And I know at the last meeting, we discussed for quite a while about the trailers, campers, recreational vehicles, etc. And one of the things that I know Mary Jo suggested was that we actually specify classifications for those types of vehicles that we feel would be or should be made should be permitted to be parked in your driveway, even if it's in front of the house. So as long as it's on the physical driveway, that certain very specific classes of recreational vehicles, there's 3 classes: a Class A, a Class B, and a Class C. And again, those RV type vehicles are the ones that can be driven on the streets. So obviously boats on trailers or campers that do not have motors that they're drivable, anything like that, would not be permitted to be parked in front of your house as the current ordinances state. But again, things that are drivable, and we'd be very specific by their standard classification of Class A, Class B, and Class C, those we would see about changing the ordinance that would allow those to be parked in the front of the house. I know there was some concern again about visibility issues. If some of our homes, some of the properties in our area, our city, have driveways that are too close to intersections or things like that, and we'd also have to clarify some sight distance concerns, because obviously if you have a large Class A, those are the big bus type, 30 or 40 footer sitting in your driveway, and it makes an unsafe situation, then we would not want to allow those, not so much because the type of vehicle, but the fact that it's unsafe because it reduces sight visibility, sight distances for intersections, etc. So I don't have anything specific to present to the committee at this time. Just based on what we talked about the last meeting and things like that, I wanted to at least consider that I believe that's a good option, but I would want to also look at those issues of sight distances. Anybody have thoughts on that at this time?
Mr. O'Shea.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I guess for me to probably weigh in on any legislation, I'd probably need. You seem pretty well versed at recreational vehicles, but I have to confess complete ignorance between the different classes and things like that. And so if we were going to work on it, I don't know if I'm the only person who's ignorant on the classes of recreational vehicles, or if I share company here. But
I am with you, Mr. Miller Novak.
Yeah, because for me, for instance, I know some of those like campers that get pulled behind trucks. I mean, to me, I don't know that there's much difference in terms of size as the ones that drive and things like that. So I guess I'd ask for some kind of information you can bring to us to help educate the ignorant.
Yeah, understood. That's not a problem. Again, I don't have any specific legislation that I want to present to the committee at this time. When I put that together, then I'll of course make sure that I will attempt to properly convey that information so that everyone can make an informed decision on the matter.
Great, thank you very much.
All right, no worries. Anything else concerning that?
Not here.
Okay, I believe Mary Jo, you seem to have your an agenda handy-ish. I think one of the next things we were talking about also was some of the ordinances as they related to the building official. Would that be on the list?
Actually, it was before the campers and trailers, but yes.
Nah.
You're all right. You're good.
We'll bounce on the agenda a little bit. I at the last meeting, I believe there was some discussion about that. We continued discussion about that. And I know obviously the concern was first whether the building official is actually an employee as noted in the salary and personnel and salary ordinance. So that would be one thing we'd have to verify. And if we would normally have that person as an employee, we would also have to consider times when that employee is actually a contracted group, such as expats that we have now. And since it would be contracted, then it would really be a moot point, because we would have to authorize the city administrator to execute the contract, and it wouldn't be an employee. So that inconsistency between the charter and the ordinance really wouldn't matter.
Mr. O'Shea,
Yes, sir.
I'm like 99% sure that our building official is an independent contractor. Even before Mr. Knight, I believe the previous person was also an independent contractor. And as long as I've had any political awareness in this city, I think that position's always been an independent contracted position.
All right, thank you. Mary Jo, I think at the last meeting, we kind of talked about that, and I thought you generally had spearheaded that personnel and salary ordinance. Were you able, did you, or do you know if a specific position exists?
You are so putting me on the spot. I'm not prepared for that. Give me a second. Let me look through this stack right here.
Oh, okay. I guess really the other concern would be, and I know Matt, you had mentioned this before, that obviously the charter would supersede any ordinance. Obviously, if the ordinance was put into place when it shouldn't have been, because the charter already addresses it, it might just make more sense then to consider repealing that piece out of the ordinance that's currently listed.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I'd have to look at both of them by one another, but the general hierarchy of laws that if something contradicts. So it's not really that it's inconsistent. I think that's a word that's a misnomer. If something contradicts the charter, it's not enforceable. The charter would trump it. But sometimes things can be inconsistent with the charter, but not be unenforceable because they just go further than the charter. They regulate in areas the charter doesn't expressly address. So that's a depends.
Understood.
Mr. O'Shea, if the question is a conflict, I feel 99% certain that the listing on the salary ordinance was in compliance with that contract. I believe that's where we got the number to put, and it was almost put there as more of a placeholder than setting the salary. And maybe it shouldn't be there as a placeholder either, but I feel like that's why it was there.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have a problem with it being there. And as we've mentioned, if it makes sense that position is professional services or a contracted position.
I feel like it even says contracted position.
Oh, in the salary order?
In the yeah, but memories are deadly sometimes.
I believe it does too.
Oh, hey, I just got power.
Eureka, and then there was light.
Yeah, yeah. Although obviously it'll take a while for my computer to boot up, but okay. Well, I think it might make sense, and I'll see if I can put together something more specific that everyone could review.
Tell me again that we're looking for building and permits.
Official. Now, the one thing that's interesting now is I believe we have two people that are acting at some level of a building official. So I'm really not sure how we defined building official. Because we have Mr. Knight, which is handling permitting, and then we have someone else that's handling code enforcement. And I thought at one point it was, well, obviously at one point it was only one person that handled both project or both parts of the responsibilities. So I'm not sure, again, if that's an issue as it relates to the salary and staffing ordinance, or we just need to remove that part of the old ordinance that says council approves the building official.
So, Mr. O'Shea,
Yes, sir.
so, I mean, you can look at, so some things are an office, not necessarily an officer, right? So, and, you know, I kind of say that because a lot of, some places their law director is an entire firm, some places it's an individual. So you have a position. In our case, we have a building official and we have a company, an entity that is that building official who has multiple people that represent it, right? It's like sometimes our law director, we have a firm, sometimes Mr. LaFlamme comes, right?
Sure.
So regarding that position, I mean, I think it is a contract. So I don't know that, I mean, the word salary isn't a word, and I'm being kind of employment attorney nerd here, but the word salary is really never used for an independent contractor. Right.
So Jim,
Okay.
I found a couple different versions. So the 2019 salary ordinance, and as you stated, there are now two humans in that department, or whatever we're calling it, the code
Yeah.
enforcement. So the 2019 ordinance, it just lists ex-PEC contractor. It doesn't give like a position. Now the 2020 that has not yet been approved has two positions, and it says one is the buildings and permits contractor, and the other one says code enforcement officer.
Okay.
So the building and permits has the word contractor in it. The code enforcement does not. But as I said, that one is not approved yet either. So we could still make that modification if we wanted to. If that was necessary.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it might make more sense to just remove, we'll have to do some repeal or something and take that particular statement out of the codified ordinance. And I don't know which one, again, I don't have my papers handy. Just where it says that the council approves the building official or something, and it might be as simple as repealing that particular sentence out of that ordinance. But the only reason I bring it up is, and I probably mentioned this before, a few years ago, I believe maybe when Mr. Knight, when XPEX first was given a position or was contracted with us, there was some discussion, I think, that may have come up back then a few years ago as it related to whether council should approve that person or position or whatever. So, and again, when there's an ordinance, you look back and you start doing some research, find out what level of authority, and you see that the ordinance says council does, and then you read the charter and the charter says that council has no authority over employees. Then it's therein lies that conflict in the statement.
Mr. O'Shea.
Yes, sir.
So under the charter, section 3.06, council has the power to set the number of employees and the compensation for all employees and officials, right?
Right.
So that includes ourselves. We're officials. So we don't have the power to choose the identity of employees. We have the power to set the number of them within a particular department, let's say. We have the power under the charter to set the compensation for all officials. So, regarding the building official, the answer is actually pretty easy. We can't pick his identity, so to speak, or the company's identity, but we could pick, and we have the power to set the compensation for such an official.
Yeah, agreed. No disagreement at all with that. But when you look at
Uh-oh. Jim, if you can hear me, you're frozen to us. Or am
I thought that
frozen?
was just me for a second, so that happened to everybody.
Then nobody
There he is.
replied, so I thought maybe it was me.
Is he back?
I see him moving.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay,
You were frozen for a minute.
You were gone.
Whatever that last statement was, you need to repeat it because we did not hear it. Jim.
Who?
You, Jim.
Oh.
You froze up on our end.
Gotcha. The ordinance says that council has the authority to approve the appointment of the building official.
Oh, well. Well, that sets up an interesting question, whether or not that would be considered a conflict, right? So,
Yeah, exactly.
but regardless, council definitely has the authority to set the compensation of that official under the charter, right? That's what we do now.
Yeah, and I don't think like I said, I don't think anyone disagrees with that. Again, it's just the fact that when you read the ordinance and it says we have that authority and we're supposed to make that appointment, but then you look at the charter and it, again, I think 308 or something.
Well, 3.06 is, I think, our powers regarding setting salaries and compensation and all that.
Yeah, that's not, I find my notes on this. What, does anybody have that handy where I included those ordinance numbers?
Which ordinance numbers, Jim?
Under the building official part in the agenda.
I do. Are you ready?
Yeah.
It's 1131.02.
All right, hang on. One 1131.02. And what's another one?
1131.05.
I think that might be it. Yeah, city council. It says the powers and duties of city council as they relate to the zoning code, which is what 1131 is. It says approve the appointment of a building official or his or her designee to administer and enforce the provisions of these regulations. So that says that we have the power and it's our duty to approve the appointment of the building official. But again, the charter says, and if that's an employee, the charter says that we're not supposed to be messing around as it relates to hiring and firing of employees.
But as long as that's a contractor, then it's in play, right?
Yeah, I would agree. And that's where I'm saying all we would do at that point is obviously authorize the city administrator to execute that contract. But at any other time, right, this particular sentence.
Can anyone else hear him?
No, Jim. Hey,
You
man,
know,
your
isn't
sound all
really valid.
robotic. Jim,
Yeah, he's breaking up real bad.
you
got
sound
some
really
lag
robotic,
issues.
like
You
a
got some
boy
lag
band
issues, Jim.
microphone.
All right, hang on just a second.
Well, that was crystal clear.
Yeah, that was better, but for a while, it sounded like our committee chair was Daft Punk or something.
Whatever that is. Sure.
But he's frozen again. Does anybody else see that? Like his finger is literally frozen right there.
I move that we remove him as committee chair today.
Ouch. Ouch.
He's back now after I said that joke.
Hmm.
Oh, I heard the joke.
Oh, okay.
Oh, by the way, you're vice chair, so does that mean you're taking over?
Am I?
Careful what you asked for.
I withdraw my motion. I remove it from the floor.
All right, well, am I sounding okay right now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so 113105 A, I think we should probably consider removing that. And I agree, Mary Jo, if it didn't come through, I agree that if it's a contracted position, then we just authorize the contract. We authorize city administrator to execute the contract. But at any other time, this particular sentence would conflict with the charter.
So you're saying the 11305 is the one, that's the one you just read to us that said is if they're an employee, we can't do it. But if they're a contractor, basically we can. Is that in a nutshell?
Well, that was two different references, but in a nutshell, yes. 1131.05 says that it's our duty to approve the building official. But
So we could even just amend that and say it's our duty as long as they're a contractor,
yeah, or
remove it.
if they're considered an employee, right, then we don't have that authority because the charter says we do not, and we should probably remove this particular sentence from that ordinance. Did that come across right that time?
Yeah.
No.
But let's can we make a decision and just do something?
Yes, ultimately, my recommendation would be to amend 1131.05, which is actually ordinance 2/2013, and remove that particular line item.
Jim, are you referring to our power to like vote to confirm?
That's
'cause
not
we
my
can't do that.
interpretation of it.
Well, I'm talking about under the ordinance. I thought we had to approve the building official. Is that what you're talking about? Getting rid of
Yes, it says approve the appointment of a building official.
that? And you want to strike that in the amendment?
That would be my initial recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that because, I mean, sitting here, I mean, if there was some, I mean, again, the compensation, I think is a given right under the charter. And I think even if that ordinance said we didn't have that power, I think the charter would override it regarding, approving of the appointment of the official.
Yes.
That's where things get a little sticky. So if you want to amend it to strike that, I'd be on board.
I would also, Actually, I would like to even take it a step further and go to the law director and have it written up.
Yeah. Well, that would be my next step. I'll get this information together and have the law director review and consider, and then try to get a piece of legislation together to make that happen. Sound like a plan? Everybody okay with that?
I am.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Me too.
Thank you, Erica. All right, what other issues as it related to old rules that we were talking about?
That's it for the stuff under the, oh no, sorry. You've got rules of council and electronic docs and then new business.
Yeah, the rules of council. I know Ms. Zorb, you recommended that we all review chapter 1. I surely hope that I shared that document with everyone and they were able to see it, or what happened?
No one's answering. I bet nobody did their homework. That's my first guess.
Guilty. I did not do my homework.
I wasn't at the last meeting, so I did not receive the homework. And to be completely honest, I probably would have flaked out if I did.
All right, no worries. Well, that's where we are. Look, we all know there are some issues in our rules of council that need to be addressed because they're a little bit outdated. Although they're still valid because we made that motion at the beginning of the year to continue use of them. So it's just something that really we should be looking through. I think at the last meeting, we did say that instead of making like one large sweeping change to cover everything, it might make sense to look through and be like, this doesn't make sense. Let's make a motion and discuss it, and then just either say, yes, we're going to change it, or no, we're not. And we just do smaller incremental changes to the current rules of council.
I would be okay with that on the contingency that someone had extremely tedious details to record all of those changes.
Yeah, understood.
Because otherwise it could just get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, and again, I think if we'll just say, I know one of them that's blatantly incorrect is the start time of our council meeting. The rules of council currently state that the meeting begins at 7:30. And it could be as simple as saying, someone make a motion to change the rules of council, I don't know, section, whatever, to state something to the effect that start time for council meetings will be as shown on the official calendar. And that would be an official change. Someone, whomever that would be in charge of making that change in the rules of council, and that becomes the new rules of council. And again, just making those incremental changes as we see issues in the current rules.
Well, I hate to sound like I always agree with you, but I like that idea because then we're only changing it in one place. Because I think that's part of our problem is some of this stuff is written in 10 different places. And when you have turnover, then people don't know to go to 10 different places to update it. So if you have one place to update it and the rest kind of fall in line, I think that's perfect.
Yeah, and again, I think the other part of that is the fact that we're just going to that it may make sense to just make those incremental changes periodically. Hey, if you're reading through the rules of council, which maybe you do regularly, if you're reading through the rules of council and you're like, this just doesn't make sense to me, there's an opportunity to maybe briefly discuss it here, or even, if we're only talking one somewhat small change that will help make sense out of it, it can be brought up during on the council floor with some maybe minimal discussion, and everyone would say, well, yeah, that makes sense. We move and second and we approve it and we change it and we go on.
I'm good with that, but how do we address it? Because clearly no one did their homework. So how do we address it going forward?
Well, I think, like I said, the idea that if you are reviewing again the rules of council because you want to stay up to date on what the rules say and you don't remember everything in there, whoever you are, and you come across something that doesn't make sense, then either bring it up during the Rules and Public Policy Committee meeting, and then we could, whether it's me as chair or Matt as vice chair, whomever, could simply say, okay, well, you're going to bring this up at the next council meeting, and it'll be just one particular issue that we would change, and that would be it. So I don't think any one in particular. I don't think we need to necessarily do homework, but one would hope that, again, if you're reviewing the document, you find something wrong, then you bring it to the committee or on the council floor to change it.
I think that sounds wonderful. I think it won't happen. I think it won't happen that way.
And I don't necessarily disagree, Mary Jo. And I told Erica this when she first started too. A lot of the things that, if you want things done, someone has to champion the cause. And whether it's, like we talked, standardizing the documents that we use, whether they're pieces of legislation or agendas or meeting minutes or whatever, everyone can say, that's a good idea. But if you're not going to champion the cause, whatever that cause is, then you're right, Mary Jo, it may not get done.
I have a side comment. Do you have facial hair?
I've had facial hair for a long. It's probably just a shadow.
It might be a bad connection. It's hard to tell. Okay.
I usually keep it trimmed way down. Side note, thanks, Mary Jo. Not related to the rules of council here.
Nope, not at all.
Unless we want to make that a rule that you can't have facial hair. All right, that's extreme. It is on my clock of a 7:11. Let's just move on. Has anybody got any new business? Anything we want to talk about?
No.
Thank you for your response.
Not at this time.
Okay. Was there anything else that I missed off that particular agenda?
Just the electronic documents, and obviously I haven't done that yet either. So
Okay, so let me ask this question though to everyone here. Did you get the notification that I shared tonight's agenda, and were you able to open that agenda and use it?
yes.
I've been reading it to you all night, so yes.
I made that assumption, but so I think, Erica, maybe that is a place to start, at least, is instead of writing, creating PDFs, emailing PDFs or whatever, we create the agendas and or the meeting minutes or whatever those documents are, and then we share them electronically, since we have that capability in the city sponsored system.
Right. And that's kind of what I was thinking, but I just wanted it to be uniform, and just so that you can kind of very easily look for and find old documents as well as old meeting minutes, because a lot of times when I'm looking for things and why something was done a particular way, I'm trying to find meeting minutes, and it's not, beyond a certain point, it's very difficult to find them.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think our system of electronic storage, as it relates to the type of PDF, is difficult to search inside those PDFs from outside that specific PDF. So if you have a directory of PDFs that are a bunch of meeting minutes and you do a search from in that directory, I don't know if the PDF version that we are creating, I don't know if that is searchable if you're not in the specific document itself. And that could be one of the ways to improve what you're referring to, Erica, the fact that you can't find things easily. Because if you just do a search across our system, if it's not reading inside the document and it's only reading the title, then yeah, if the title doesn't reflect clear enough what's in the document, then you're not going to find it. You have to basically go through or figure out what dates and then try to look through each document. But having said that, then when the document is created for archiving, that particular document has to have that capability. And I'm not sure if we have the expertise to know what that is, and we may need to talk to the tech guy that we have and see what we should be doing for that.
Sounds like a plan. I'll definitely do that.
Okay, I don't think I have anything else. No. I think that's all I have. Nothing new's come up. So if there's nothing else for rules and public policy, yes, no, maybe so.
Nope.
All right, then I will officially adjourn the meeting. Drew, for you, the next meeting officially doesn't start until 7:30.
Okay, I think I'm supposed to just keep the stream rolling. So it's up to you guys whether you want to just wait and start at 7:30 or if you want to just go right into it.
Okay,
I
yeah, I
don't-
think
I don't
think
think
we
we're
have to
allowed
quickly
to start early.
We can't.
Okay.
We just have to sit here and hang out until 7:30.
All right.
all right, well, I'm going to disconnect at this point because I'm on my phone. I'm going to try to get back on the computer so I can be prepared for the 7:30 meeting. So
right.
hopefully I'll see most of you folks a little later.
See you later, alligator.
Meeting adjourned.
I need a mic check. Can anybody hear me?
I can.
Yep.
All right, thank you. I'm trying a new Bluetooth headset, so I just want to check it.
I mean, you don't sound well. It's a little distorted, but not bad. I mean, it's hearable.
My clock shows 7:30. Do I have 3 people who are actually paying attention to me? Yay, 1.
Yep.
I'm here.
All righty. Okay, it looks like we are good to go. Okay, so I did send an agenda and with the meeting minutes from the meeting in June. However, I still have not updated the meeting minutes from, I think it's April that I'm missing. So I will get that done as soon as possible. But you should have the meeting minutes and agenda from the minutes from last month's meeting.
Do you need a motion for that?
I don't think so. Not in a committee meeting. I don't think so.
All right.
That's my understanding, at least. I'm sure somebody will send me a really interesting email correcting me if I'm wrong.
All right. If so, I'll approve the minutes. How's that?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The second thing on the agenda just says fire department issues. And so I just want to make you all aware of a situation. because I don't like to hear things kind of through the grapevine. So I'm going to tell you so that you have a direct knowledge what I know. So there was a child that was run over by a car in North College Hill a few weeks ago. Is everybody aware of that?
I was not.
Okay. So apparently the person initially left the scene and nobody, but everybody, you know, they have video of the car. It was shared on Facebook. It was shared on the news media, shared so much, I believe that eventually the person who actually ran over the child turned himself in. But what you all need to know is that when they called 911 for the fire department to respond to the child being run over by the car, and he has some pretty severe injuries, they did not have enough staff to get him to the hospital. So they had to actually call law enforcement to supplement their staff. And I'm not sure how that worked or how it happened, but they did get the child to the hospital. The child did survive, but that very easily could have gone a completely different way. So I just think that it just is you know, we've got to fix whatever is going on over at the fire department.
Excuse me, Erica, are you saying there was no, I want to say reciprocal, and that's not the word I want.
Mutual aid.
Say it again?
Mutual aid.
Yes, thank you. So there was no mutual aid available either?
Now remember, Mount Healthy doesn't have, is it EMTs that they don't have right now? I'm sorry. Just
Paramedics.
yeah, so Mount Healthy wasn't able to, they weren't able to respond, and I'm not certain why Rain Township or Springfield Township didn't respond, but they did not respond. Hey, sorry. Stop it.
It
So
makes you feel
sorry.
any better. I got a puppy over here that's driving me nuts. You just can't hear him.
Yeah, he's just like really upset. So if you guys could just give me just 1 minute, let me see if he just wants to go outside. I apologize. I'm so sorry. What are you doing?
Zoom bombing the meeting.
COVID strikes again.
Yeah, the joys of Zoom.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I'm not sure about the mutual aid, Mary Jo. I'm not certain what was going on, but at any rate, I know that they just didn't have enough employees. So, you know, crisis averted, but crisis really not averted.
And I'm sorry to belabor the subject, but so our police department responded and took the child to the hospital? Is that what you said?
I'm not really certain. I didn't get all of the details. I should have gotten more details. I just know
I'm
that
sorry.
whatever they had to do involved one of using a police officer to have the correct number of people. I will get in touch with Chief Bells and have him explain that to us maybe. I don't know if we want him to explain that at a council meeting or not, but he can I'll call him.
This is just as public as that council meeting, so it shouldn't matter.
Oh yeah, well, you know, so we, yeah, I mean, and maybe, you know, we can, I don't know. So,
Yep, I hear you.
yeah,
Well, Erica, if I can,
yeah, yes, please.
I think no one wants to admit to a deficiency, but it goes two ways, right? It's some people will look at it and say, in the sense that if we have a problem and we need more money, then we go with the levy and we can improve. People will be more responsive to approve a levy because of this. But then other people will look at it the other way, and we had this when we were back talking about the fire district. We've had a levy, and we're supposed to have enough people now. Why don't we have enough people now? And what's going on? So it could go either way. I think, like Mary Jo is saying, whether we talk about it here in a committee meeting or we talk about it on the council floor, the information is out there, and one way or the other, it's got to be addressed.
Okay.
Yeah, just probably speak on it too. I mean, certainly when we were addressing the last levy, these are things that were warned of by both the chief and the people that were in support of the levy. Ultimately, it failed, and that is what it is. I mean, again, like I've said, any levy you put on the ballot is a balancing act of not asking for too much and not asking for too little, where you get asked for another. And the last one didn't pass, but again, I mean, it was warned that these were potential consequences of not being able to have enough money in the coffers to add staffing. Because the problem with mutual aid, we can always ask that question, well, where was mutual aid? But mutual aid doesn't have any 100% obligation to answer every call. They can be busy, and the other governments that are cooperating with us, they can pick and choose, literally, what to do with their own resources. So nothing compels our partners in every circumstance to provide us aid. And we have to realize as a community that too much reliance on mutual aid is a bad idea.
So I'm going to reiterate, like what Jim said is, yeah, maybe the last levy was voted down, but the one before that was passed. And that one before that should have had 3 full-time employees. It was supposed to staff 3 full-time employees. So there's that. I'm just going to leave that there.
Well, to reiterate as well, that's the balancing, right? It seems that prior levy, for one reason or another, and I think, Mary Jo, you'd explained a little bit about it, bleeding income sources and things like that. I know that you'd talked about it at a previous meeting and why you believe that was the case, but it turned out in the long run, that was the other mistake with the levy, right? Not quite enough.
Well,
General fund is not providing the same amount of supplemental income that it was previously. Yes. Is that
Right.
what you're alluding to? Yes.
Yeah. You had mentioned that was your belief and why they probably didn't ask for enough the last time. But, then again, I mean, the last 2 levies, it's like you have both kinds of mistakes. And if we're going to address it again, we got to learn from both past mistakes and figure out how to do it right and try to meet the sweet spot.
all right. Okay. All right. So next on the agenda are speed hump proposals. And you all should have a document there in front of you with regard to the guidelines for a speed hump program. Did everybody get that?
Yes. Erica, I'm very sorry not to usurp your progress here, but is there any chance to are we interested in giving our chief the project or administration the project of trying to crunch some numbers and make proposals for a levy, or is that something we're just not ready to do yet?
Actually, I was going to, that was going to be a part of the mayor's task force update. So, but since you brought that up, we'll just kind of talk about that now. So as a part of the mayor's task force, which I did miss the last meeting, but as a part of the task force, what we're trying to do is find solutions for the fire department, and obviously a levy is one of those solutions. Chief Fells has done a really great job of putting together numbers about what like if he had his wish list of everything that the fire department needs, what he would want that to include. And he's very open to anyone who wants to come and talk to him about it. He'll go through the numbers with you, with any member of council, any citizen, anybody really who wants to ask questions about kind of what they need. So I think that, we're at a place. I mean, obviously there's some people who are against a levy, but I think it's just because, they have a fixed income and they really feel like a levy impacts that. But, there are other people, I'm one of those people who feel as though, it's just something that needs to happen to make our fire department what we need for it to be, if we're going to have an effective fire department. And, Chief Fells also has the numbers where I'm talking about, like, if Colerain Township were providing services to us, and I believe that was something that was so exorbitant that it wasn't feasible for us. So that's something also to consider. And, lastly, he was just saying that with regard to the part-time employees that he has, if the other surrounding agencies pay those part-time employees $2 or $3 more than we are able to pay them, then, they'll call off work with us to go and work at one of those other agencies. And what I will say is, I read in the paper, I believe yesterday, I read in yesterday's paper how one of our firefighters was actually hired on full time at another agency. I meant to kind of save the story to tell you all who it was, but I'd read the paper from cover to cover. So I did see that kind of as a little neighborhood blurb in there. So does that answer your question, Mr. Miller-Novak?
Yes, I mean, essentially, it means it's in the works, right?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'll go back to speed hump proposals. Mr. Hedger, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so this was, Mr. Hedger sent this to me, and I will give you the floor.
Thank you. So I know we all are aware of the Matthew Garza, who was, struck by the car a couple weeks ago. And I know that we've talked about speed humps before, not to go into specifically what happened with, his incident. It really it hit Daphne and I both with it, and thought, there's got to be something that we can do to help slow people down when driving. That is the number one cause of accidents, is speed and distracted driving. And speed humps are widely known in many studies to be effective at reducing speed and increasing alertness when driving. And so I know that we've had pushback before with maintenance issues and snow plowing and things of that sort and that nature with it. I just think, you know, there's a call to action with this, and we need to do something. We can't have, you know, another one of our residents hit by a car, and especially a child, just for crossing the street, and maybe didn't look both ways right quickly enough. But if you're going 25 miles an hour, you usually have enough time to stop quickly enough. If you're going over that, it becomes very hard to stop. So that's why I've looked for some different proposals throughout Ohio and kind of put this together to give the residents a resident-led program for introducing speed humps, because you know, no one knows their streets better than the people living on them, and so this gives people a chance to actually petition to get speed humps on their street. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions. I'm totally open to changes.
Christian, so we just got this a little while ago, and I'm sorry, it looks like a long document, and I have not had a chance to, oh, it's a 17 page. I have not had a chance to look through all of it.
Yeah,
But I noticed on Facebook, and I know legislating via Facebook, but someone posted a link to something called, they were temporary speed humps. And
yes.
the more I started thinking about that, I thought that might, at least in my mind, my initial thought was that's even better, because then you can move them around and people never know where they are. Right? So people never know when they're going to run into a speed hump, and they might actually slow the hell down.
So
It is no more than 25 miles an hour throughout all of North College Hill.
100%.
25 miles an hour is the maximum speed limit. So if we make these mobile units, because I'm afraid if we just put one, say we put one on Loboido, so people use a different street and they go around it and they still go 50 miles an hour.
I'm sorry, Ms. Zorb. Drew, is there any way you can unmute Miss Bailey? I'm not able to unmute her. I'm not really sure why she's muted, or she can't unmute herself.
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Zorb, go ahead.
It's gone now.
You were just
The train was rolling down the track,
Yeah.
and now it's
discussing the temporary speed humps, and I'm liking that. That sounds like a great idea. I'm loving that.
well. I think we would need the police buy-in to do that, because, well, and what's it, Public
Much
Works?
work.
Yeah, because they'd
Miss,
be doing the moving, right? Probably, more than likely.
So to address, you know, the temporary ones and moving them, there are specific regulation by ODOT on where they can be placed, and providing proper signage for alerting drivers of a speed hump. So I don't think it would be necessarily could be a surprise for speed humps. And then also the ones that are removable, they tend to be for even lower speeds, because they can be driven over still quite quickly without much, what's it called, slowing of traffic or traffic calming. The speed humps have been proven to be more effective for things under 30 miles an hour, between 30 and 20.
so can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool, awesome. So we did extensive work on speed humps a couple of years ago, and the only reason why that we didn't put them down is because in case of an emergency, they will bottom out our fire trucks and our ambulances. So typical run-of-the-mill, regular-sized speed bumps, when they hit those, it will bottom them out, and it would make our maintenance skyrocket, essentially.
Yeah, I guess one of my questions, well, I have a couple of questions, Christian. I heard you say that this was or could be, or would be a resident proposal or something?
It's a resident-led program.
Yeah.
So it's not, North College Hill doesn't propose where the speed limit should be. we allow the residents of the street to actually decide that. So the way it would work is there would be buy-in from the residents and businesses on that street. So if a resident thought there should be a speed hump, say on their block of Savannah, they would send a petition to the city. The city then would review that block of Savannah saying, yes, speed bumps could possibly be built here. It's safe for vehicles. It's not too hilly. It's not too, curvy, because all those things come to effect when placing speed humps. Once that's approved, it's sent back to the resident saying that they now must complete this petition, and they must have 2/3 signatures of all residents and businesses buy-in for that section of street or the entire street. And at that point, there would be then a priority survey, and the priority survey kind of gives a number between 0 and 20 points on how many, the higher points there are, the more funding we would provide, in saying it's more important of a project to get speed humps in that area. It also determines the funding level the city provide, because it's not 100% funded by city. It's kind of a resident and public funding.
Okay, so similar to COVID, no one really wants anyone to die from a car accident or a disease or whatever. But the question really comes in. I really appreciate that it's not fully funded by the city, but do you have any statistics on how many pedestrian accidents, motor vehicle pedestrian accidents have happened, and out of those, how many deaths have occurred?
Are you asking nationwide, or what's the scope?
No, again, we're a couple of times we've heard about the most recent incident, but how many incidents in North College Hill? Because obviously, for North College Hill, we're the ones deciding if we're going to spend the money on this. So how many do you know, or are those statistics available quickly?
I do not know. That's something that we could request from either the Hampton County Sheriff. They might have data on that, or NCHPD would probably have data on that. My biggest concern is we are a walking school district, and so when the schools eventually do open back up, there's always a larger chance of this happening in our neighborhood, just because kids are always walking. There's a lot of street parking. There's a lot of parks that people can go to. There's shopping centers that are all walking, and all of that creates a larger chance of someone actually being in an accident. And just with speeding, with accidents as well, not just with hitting a pedestrian is on top of that. I think speeding is an issue in North College Hill. Now, I don't know how many tickets we issue, because I've never seen or heard about someone getting a ticket for speeding in North College Hill by our police department. I don't know.
It happens.
It happens. How often, I don't know. I see it just where I live. People, it looks like they drag race on Galbraith. So, again, 25 miles an hour through the city.
Right, but Mr. Hedger, we could not you would agree we can't put speed bumps on Galbraith.
I'm not saying we're going to put speed humps on Galbraith. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying
I wouldn't mind looking into putting speed bumps in the middle of Galbraith, because that's what people are using as their drag racing lane. I wonder if we could look into that.
That is a possibility. My biggest concern is the mostly residential areas and streets. That's if I would want to focus on somewhere, it would be, Betts, Savannah, Leboido. Those are residential streets that are thoroughfares for a lot of people that kind of go through North College Hill, and there's not a lot of stop signs on all of them, and so people kind of either blow through them or don't care and go 40-50 miles an hour. Speed humps are proven to be effective at speeds anywhere above 35 miles an hour. So if you're going above 35, you're definitely going to feel it. And I think this is an effective way. There's lots of studies. You can just Google it. There's a ton of studies that show how effective speed humps are. It's kind of like
I think I would have to I'd have to see what really the statistics are in North College Hill. And again, I think as Amber mentioned, the maintenance issues as it relates to damage to our own vehicles, or if you don't want to call it damage, just inefficiencies that take place because of them. Then to have, you know, snow plows, and we get a lot of kudos because our snow plow guys are out there and really take care of things. And I just think that we're going to put these out there, and they're going to slow down that process, and then we're going to have to be replacing them regularly because of that process. And I don't know. I guess I'd have to see some more statistics on.
So I mean, I
how
get
it's
your
going to
concern.
help, how it's going to help our city.
Is
So
if
one
I could butt
thing,
in real quick,
oh wait, I got it first. If
maybe on your side, not on mine. But you might be
Dang.
lagging, but go ahead.
We did look into not the speed bumps that go straight across, but we did look into the speed bumps that were kind of wavy, if you will, like you had to swerve through them. Does that make sense? So instead of just driving straight, you would have to swerve through them. We did talk about those, but we were concerned with residential streets with on-street parking, people actually not being able to maneuver those. But I like those.
I think my issue is purely probably practical, and that's the money issue. I mean, here we are telling this story today where we don't have enough fire department staff to properly get this injured child to the hospital in a timely fashion. And, you know, if the residents are going to kind of ante up some money, that's one thing, but we still have to throw in money and an unknown amount and what that amount will cost, because, okay, I could think of Bising would be a place that, you know, places around the school like Bising, La Buedo, things like that. If I had to pick a couple streets that I'd want to put speed bumps on if we had the money to do it. But then the problem is if you spend money constructing speed bumps and, you know, a child gets hit on another street, because there's a lot of streets here, and putting speed bumps on 4 streets is 4 streets of many, and a child gets hit on another street and we still don't have adequate staffing in our department to get that child to the hospital. We spent a lot of money with no result, right? That's just my concern.
So I mean, I get what everyone is saying, you know, about the money part. That's why I was hoping with having, you know, a resident buy-in with it, and also that we're not providing 100% of the funding, depending on the priority level that's set within the proposal. That gives us the option, and council has the option to fund it nothing if they want it to. If they, one year we can't afford it, we decide not to. But if one year we want to put $10,000 in it, we can. And the other thing to think about is that this doesn't have to come out of the general funds. This can come out of street levy funds on top of that. And there is money in there, and we have a fund balance that's significantly high. So that is kind of my point towards that. And the other point is, you know, I get the road maintenance, I get the maintenance of the fire department and the ambulance, but it's how much, you know, is the cost of that greater than the cost of like the child's health and safety and our residents' health and safety? You know, there's got to be a balance between there. Just saying, no, we can't do it on all the streets doesn't mean we should just do it on none of them. I think if we can get them on the biggest streets, that can at least help some. If we can get it on a few streets, I think that's some moving forward. At least this gives a program and a path forward for residents to actually try to get something done with, you know, reducing and traffic calming measures.
Couple questions.
Mr. Hedger. Oh.
I either way, you can go or I can go. I just have a couple questions.
Yep, go.
So I guess you're saying we're not, I guess by doing this, we're not necessarily stuck if we're in some kind of economic crisis, so to speak, not knowing what the current economic scenario is going to produce for us over the next 2 years. So, I mean, that'd be one question. And another question I would have is if, let's say, people on a street want to do this and somehow they take this survey, are we stuck approving everything the residents do? Like maybe residents approve this on a street that for one reason or another, you know, whether it's city planning or something like that, says we really cannot put, we should not put them on this street specifically because of X, Y, and Z. Can we override this?
So yeah, to answer that, I can answer both of those. So the funding level, the first question, there is no written amount of how much funding has to be provided to this. It is exact wording, I believe, is it's set by council per year on a yearly fiscal year basis. So depending on how much we want to provide, we can, and that's how the approval goes if we have funding or not for it. And it would just move to the next year. Now, for the question on, you know, would it be approved if the street shouldn't have speed humps to begin with? That's kind of the second part of it. So you have the citizen petitions, if they want speed humps on their street. Public Works and would go out and say, well, this road is too hilly or it's too busy or this road shouldn't have speed humps on it. And then that would be, you know, sent back to the petitioner, the citizen who did that. And we would say, you know, this road's not approved for speed humps. And at that point, that would end the process. So they wouldn't even need to get buy-in from the residents if the street's not approved. So it's to avoid that whole, you know, issue there. So that, you know, it's up to Public Works and, you know, administration to determine what streets should be not and what streets can be.
If I may.
Yes.
You may get in line. You may get in line. That's what you may do.
Is it your turn?
Yes. And I'm not on that side on my screen. But anyhow, so first of all, Mr. Hedger, I'm going to say that I am fully supporting this idea. I have been for the past umpteen years that we've been talking about it on the council, and it always gets shot down. I'm in your corner on this one, that's for sure. But there is an alternative solution or an alternative supporting mechanism here. How do we get the PD to start increasing their traffic patrolling? Because it is very apparent to me, someone who is now working from home, that they just are not. They're not.
Question, but it's not.
I can agree with that.
I mean, I agree. I agree with you.
Ms. Zorb, I would mention the police task force, and we haven't had a meeting yet, but I have some thoughts about that. But I agree with you, and I know that I have said that several times. It's 1.8 square miles of North College Hill. I should see a police car at least once every hour if they're patrolling. I don't. So, I mean, and I sat in Walgreens parking lot once for like 3 hours to see if I saw a car ever, and I didn't. So,
you know when I see them? When I'm watering the flowers, the sunflowers, and I see them over at UDF. And yeah, I know they're going to watch this, and I don't care.
Good.
You know what? Step up to the plate then, kiddos.
Right.
There you go.
I mean,
If you're doing your job, you're not going to get called out.
not to be a charter dork here, but I mean, honestly, as a council, I mean, there's very little we can do about it. You know,
except call them out right now. That's what we're doing.
Exactly, and that's kind of it.
We can't enforce anything. I get it. I know
right.
that.
We're not in charge of it. We don't have any more power than the average citizen when it comes to what the police do in a day-to-day operations, right? So that's something to keep in mind. So, and I'm very intrigued by the speed bump thing on that regard, right? Because we don't have the power, and we could sit here and we could debate what they do and don't do, and we're really kind of wasting time in that regard other than voice our opinions and criticisms like every other person can. But, you know, to kind of get back on track of the speed bumps, you know, that's something we can do if we choose to do it. And that's something within our powers to set that kind of policy. So I'm intrigued by it. I'd like to see the details. I mean, I would like to get just some idea of, you know, where some kind of plan or something like that. I don't know, but I'm intrigued.
There's a 17-page document in your email.
Mr. Hedger.
Yes.
What do we need to do to get it on the floor of council to vote on it? What do we need to do?
So, I mean, I guess
what's the vote?
I don't know. I mean, but if we have enough people saying, yes, let's do speed humps, I mean, what do we need to do? Let's do that
Well,
thing.
it should absolutely be run through the law director.
Yeah, I
before it
agree.
gets to-
Yeah.
It should be
Okay.
sent to the law director, and then I guess put in together as a resolution or ordinance. I would be my
Council
own.
can pass a resolution
I-
to direct the law director to draft something.
Yeah.
If I may real quick, what I would also do though is run it through the planning commission and see if they have any insight on it first, just to
No,
make sure. As
I
far
don't
as,
agree with that at all. Mr. Hedger, we spin our wheels too much. Let's do something. Let's make a decision. Let's do it. Right?
oh, I agree. I
That's
agree
what we're doing.
100%.
So-
But my only thing is hold on. I agree 100%. I think that we definitely do need to do speed bumps, but the fire chief and the police chief explicitly told us one night in a meeting how much damage it does to ambulances to do traditional speed humps. And that's the only thing I'm afraid of is we put out traditional speed humps. They're racing to save someone's life. And lo and behold, we're putting a new front end in an ambulance. So,
Amber,
and then on the other hand, too, though, like, and I'm not trying to jump on the police aren't doing anything, but I haven't seen the speed trailer out in a long time.
It was just out in front of my house. Like,
I think it's up on
Cool,
vets now
okay.
after this child got
Yeah.
hit.
Okay.
I only
Cool,
know that because I
that's-
saw it in a picture on Facebook.
is that where was it on beds?
Yeah.
But Amber,
yes.
we can always, I mean, to kind of try to split the baby here a little bit between what Eric is saying, what you're saying, because I'm with Eric. I think a lot of times we need to act and we don't act, and we take forever and nothing gets done. But I understand your point with the planning commission. We can always write some kind of override power of the planning commission, right? Because that's what I was talking about earlier. If there's streets where we could put these things, but for some reason there's streets that we just can't, we probably need some safety net in that regard. And I don't think we're necessarily the people with the qualifications to do that. So I think in whatever legislation we were to pass, we probably should put something in there about planning center having some involvement. But do that after if we're going to do it, do that after we've enacted the law. It's our choice to set the policy, and we can give them a power to oversee placement of these things after.
I agree with Matt. I agree that there is language already in this for approval by the Public Works Department, and so I can also add that as the Planning Commission if that's something that Council does want. And I also it seems like we are kind of in agreement. I can send this over to the law director.
Christian, if I can.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Is there, I like the idea that there is the citizen involvement and all that. I think that's great. My question is there any reason why citizens can't petition to have a speed hump now?
I mean, I guess there isn't, but there's no formal process for it to go through and be approved.
Yeah, but if no one has ever asked to have one, then what's going on?
I mean, maybe this gives chance for a citizen to actually see there's we're putting out an effort to do something, and so we can if someone is complaining about speeding or on their street, the city can direct them to this ordinance or resolution or whatever it is going to be, the proposal, and they can make a difference in their community, on their neighborhood. So,
Jim, I'm sorry. I thought you were done, Christian. Are you not?
I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't think there's a lawful way to petition to have a speed bump or a stop sign or something like that put in for citizens. Citizens can petition. They have certain powers to petition, but not that. So for the citizens to petition, let's say to have a speed bump put in on their street, it would kind of be like, hey, elected officials, a bunch of us think this is important enough, and if you don't do it, we might not vote for you, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, people aren't going to necessarily do that. I mean, I think what this is creating a program to say, if you do this, there's a much better chance. I mean, there is a good chance that this might happen. And because this is different than a petition in the sense of it's not just a suggestion. I mean, these people, from my understanding, and Christian can tell me if I'm wrong, they're essentially anteing in, right? They're not just petitioning to have it done. They're also committing to give money to the cause, correct?
Yes, yes. Just depending on the priority level. So if we determine that one street is extremely high priority level, the city might provide 100% funding. But if it's a lower priority level, say it's a smaller street, depending on how many points are assigned, if you read the appendix of, I think it's B in the legislation, they do ante up. So they might have to ante up 40%, 30%, 20%. And so that's a buy-in from the residents, to also, to get into it. And so if it's a really low priority, they might decide, well, I don't want to pay 40% and move on. But this gives options to residents and city funding, if council, determines that to do that.
Okay, so you said legislation. Is legislation included or not yet?
No, I mean, this would be part of the legislation. So I pulled all of this information from like all Ohio townships and different counties that have similar programs and kind of did a mismatch of putting it together. So I definitely wanted to get reviewed by the law director, but this can, I believe, effectively be turned into legislation, because everything that I pulled it from was already passed ordinances by other cities and townships. So.
Okay, but this document is not a piece of legislation right now.
No, as it stands, it's not. It's just a program.
All right, gotcha.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hedger. That was very, very, educational, informative. Yeah, that's a better word,
No
informative.
problem. I'll send it over to the law director. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so next on our agenda is there's a resolution regarding the Sundale project. Does anybody have any objections? It's basically the street projects to start the repair work for those streets.
Is it, you mean
What?
like street surfaces on Sundale?
No, I think, did I write I wrote the right name, right? I think so.
It's a very long name.
Hold on. Is basically,
Is this something?
we're basically saying that they can start, it's Sundale Avenue reconstruction.
Is this a piece of legislation that we normally review and approve? Because I've not seen it quite like this, so maybe we've done something.
It was definitely drafted by the law director. And it was, as, I'm a fan of things that are drafted by the law director because, then we could say, hey, we got that from the law director. So my understanding is that these resolutions are so that they can start whatever the street repair projects, whatever they are on Sundale, and then on Galbraith and Goodman. I know on Goodman, there's just a lot of potholes and, all that bumpy stuff going on Galbraith. I know what that one is. But Sundale, I'm not for certain what that is, but I know that this is just basically giving them the green light to get the bids and get started on that work.
Mary Jo.
Mrs. Chair,
Yes.
real quick, this is something that we've done in the past. We did it for Dallas when we had to do my street that got redone, and they basically scrape it down to the gravel, re-level it, and they take out all of Jim, you'll know what it is, all of the water pipes, and replace those, and then redo the skirt tails and the pipes coming out to the street, and then resurface it completely.
Yeah, I guess what confuses me is the title specifically. I get it. It seems like I do recall seeing something that basically says, yeah, as a council, here's legislation that says, please move forward with this project. I kind of get that. I guess just that title really throws me off. That it's you know what, 1, 2, 3, what, like 5 or 6 lines, and I guess like Erica said, we had a lawyer do this, so it had to be wordy to get his money's worth.
So, hey man, I
Yes,
support the
Matt, did you
cause.
call my name?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll ask Amber, but I mean, I was just asking what kind of work was being done on Sundale. So your understanding is, I mean, is this the kind of plumbing where you have to give notice to the residents or something like that? Or is it just like at the street level and this is all like city property?
Yeah, but we wouldn't do that. The contractor would do all that, but yes.
Yeah.
And what
but I
I
guess-
will also remind you all is that this is not going to, I mean, the first step of the process is to get the bids. So we're just sending the resolution to council floor, and we can obviously ask Mr. Mosby if he knows to give us the specific description of the work being done on Sundale. It just, I want to, if we need to submit these resolutions or send them to Ms. Dewald so that they can make it to council floor, I wanted to actually get that done. So that we can.
Is there
you
a
know,
timing issue on this?
I don't think that there's a timing issue, but you know, I personally, that Galbraith is terrible. So if we have the money to fix it, I'm like, can we tell them to fix it? I mean, and you know, I will remind you guys that it was drafted by the law director, so it should be good.
I do have another follow-up question. I know I'm opening the second one now, but I opened the one that says Sundale, and it doesn't even say the blocks on Sundale. It doesn't on the Galbraith either. I mean, to me, at a minimum, it should at least say where on Sundale is being done and where on Galbraith, let alone what's going to be done. Is that asking too much of our law director? Do we have a detail or
No,
two?
Well-
not at all. He was probably trying to write it in such a way that whoever's doing the work is not limited to, like, if he writes it such that it's just one block and they need to extend into another block, then they're not kind of stuck.
Well, but that would be in the RFP. All of that detail, it has to be in the RFP, right?
I don't know what an RFP.
Request for proposal.
Request for
Yeah.
proposal. Yeah.
So before
Yeah,
they can
but
get
wouldn't-
bids, they have the details.
Right, but I guess wouldn't that, I mean, do we need that level of detail in a resolution where all we're saying is for the project known as Sundale or the project known as Galbraith, we agree that we want to go ahead and spend this money? I think that's where we are.
Well, I think you're authorizing the city manager to put together an RFP, right? And then
Right.
the details go in the RFP. So yeah, I agree with Jim. I mean, I don't think we need to have like minute detail in the resolution. I think you're just authorizing the city manager to draw up an RFP.
And actually, section 1 of this particular resolution references Appendix A, which we don't have. So Appendix A may have that additional information that would make everyone feel better about it.
I need to feel better about it. Thank you.
That's quite all right.
I will follow up and get the details, but I would like to just go ahead and send it to the floor, but I will get the details for you, Ms. Zorb.
Thank you, dear.
All right, and next is the police task force. Haven't had a meeting on that yet, but I am working on that, working on understanding the rules. So we will hopefully meet soon. As far as old business, I have these things here, but with regard to document formats, I just haven't gotten to it. Police software, haven't heard anything. It's just like there are crickets, no software, no reports. We're just not allowed to know where our millions of dollars are going to every year. It's just kind of poof into the ether. I don't know. guess we're just not allowed to know. I don't know.
I don't agree with that statement, just so you know.
I'm being extremely sarcastic.
The
I know,
either
but I
part-
wanted to
never a
point it
good
out.
thing.
I wanted to point it out for all those listeners out in the video
Yeah.
world. That was
Sarcasm is
sarcasm.
never a good thing.
Did you disagree with the ether part or not knowing part?
Ouch. Erica?
So
Again, if I have to tell everybody I'm being sarcastic, then I'm not doing a very good job. But what I will say is that once again, I'm asking again that, the software that is in the budget and, so there's money in the budget for the software.
It's
And
kind of one of them things where you said before, they just need to do something, especially
Right.
when their money is there. Just pick one of them, whatever it is. Pick one.
that's right. And my understanding is, because I've seen a report from a neighboring community and the reports were beautiful. And apparently we already own the software used to create that report from the neighboring community. So I guess if I don't see a report before next month, then I'll have a copy of the report from the neighboring community and I'll just continue to beat the horse to death. So
Champion.
yes,
Champion.
no reports, no police software, no nothing. Yeah, not sure. Yeah, there we go. So
I've learned on this council that you could also call it bird dogging.
And he used it properly this time. Isn't
Yeah,
Look at that.
I evolve, right?
okay, so safety procedures, in-person meetings.
May I,
I,
may
yes,
I speak up?
yes, please, Ms. Orb. Yes.
So I was at an ICRC meeting the other day, and I have found out that they are doing something called, I'm using air quotes, a hybrid meeting. And Drew, if you're listening, if I say something wrong, please correct me. But apparently they can, with the current cameras, I believe, they do have to get some additional, some type of converter piece that is hard to find, but they are beginning the process of having, like I said, a hybrid meeting. So we could have some people in council chambers. We could have some people that are still at home if they are uncomfortable. And we could do it as a webinar. So like if we have to have a meeting, like a public hearing, where it has to be open to the public and the public has to be able to legally provide input, they can do a webinar so that the public can speak if we wanted to do that. So those are some options on the table.
Yeah, I'm glad this is coming up today because I don't really think there's any reason to rush back to in-person in terms of safety with really nothing getting better. For me, it doesn't make sense to change our behavior in terms of safety if things and numbers and incidents are not going down, right? It's like, for me, it sends the wrong message to the public that everything's normal. We're going back to normal. You should too. But having said the above, for me, it's time that, okay, we're just going to be doing this probably till I think we're allowed to December. I don't think there's any reason to rush out of it. But I think it's time to admit, at least for me, I didn't know initially, the hope was that by summer, things would be better enough that the numbers would not be getting higher as they have been over the last month or two. So I think it's time to just say we need to figure out a way in this format to allow for public participation, because it's obviously this disease is going to last long enough that we're not going to be having a normal council meeting for a really long time. But we can't just tell the public, hey, you can't participate for a really long time. And I can tell you things I've seen in other meetings, Mary Jo just mentioned a couple things. I mean, we can allow people to tell us they're coming ahead of time so we could recognize them when they're coming into Zoom and let them in and just make sure they understand you don't get to talk until you get to say you get to talk, give them time limits. But we have to think of something ultimately, and maybe rules and public policy is maybe the better committee for that, in a sense that it is kind of a council rule. It might have safety implications, but ultimately when it's a procedure decision. But yeah, we got to allow public participation in this format somehow.
Okay. Mr. O'Shea, that is your committee. Will you agree to take on that?
Yeah, I'll let me make a note of that. I'll put that on our agenda for future discussion and see how we can move forward. And since Mary Jo is also on the committee, the information that she has, we can kind of pull that together and hopefully find out what's best overall for the system.
Okay. All right. So that brings us to new business. Any new business from anyone?
Madam
Eric,
Chair.
can I keep you there for a second? Is there anyone on council that has a strong desire to go sit in council chambers?
Oh, I do. I want to do that. Just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
We really
There
can't
goes
tell
that
sarcasm when
sarcasm.
you're just on the phone. There's no face to even read.
Sarcasm makes
no,
great sound
for
bites.
me, honestly, guys, like if it came down to me going to council, sitting there and letting people just stand up and talk, I would do that, I guess. Like I would sit there so that way the public, I'll volunteer for that role. But as far as like, it's not, and no, I don't want to go sit there.
The thing that would concern me though, and now we're getting in the weeds, but are we going to have somebody take temperatures if we have to start going in? So we have to start considering all of that too.
We
anyway.
just don't have enough space.
Right.
We
That
don't.
room is so
Right.
small. It's
Yep.
so small. And think of how many people, like where we sit, we can't even get 6 feet from each other. And then where you have the audience sits, if for some reason, 10 people want to come, like you're toast. It's impossible. So I think that by not committing to just figuring out a way to do it through digital means, we're just kind of kidding ourselves. And because the problem is too, if we don't set up that path, if we don't commit to doing it in this format, and for some reason, things progress to where the governor says we're not even allowed to do that any longer, then we're stuck. We have no plan, right? So let's just commit to this, make a plan. The people can participate in this format. They're safe. We're safe. We're sending the right message to the public, and we're getting it done.
Yes.
I agree.
Was that sarcasm, Matt?
No, man, that was some passion,
Is he never
seriousness.
Is he never not sarcastic? Question mark?
That's true. I should probably always say that was serious and like point out when I'm actually telling the truth, right?
Right. Something like that.
Sorry,
So,
Eric, I had cut you off
That's
before.
okay.
Where you going?
You're perfectly fine. I'm always mindful of the time. So now we're at new business.
Real
Is
quick.
there any new business?
Yes, real quick. I think that we at least need to start the conversation if we are going to have the car show this year, simply because my mom was at a small get-together wearing a mask, and my mom has been diagnosed with this, and so is my aunt, who was actually at a small bike show.
Okay, wait.
So
Miss Bailey, I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you. Is this my committee or is this Mr. Hedger's committee?
It's public.
That sounds like
I
a
would say
community
public
event, huh?
But I would say public safety, just because any other time I would say community event, but at this point in time, it's literally making sure people don't get sick. So
Okay.
I disagree. I still think it's community and development
Okay.
with a safety issue involved.
I'm not trying to shirk any work. I just,
Without the safety issue though, like there would be no question. You know what I'm saying? So I guess that's why I feel like it's more public safety, because if we weren't in a pandemic, then it wouldn't even be a question at all.
Amber, I think one of the issues is that it seems like public safety and rules and public policy right now are kind of filled to the brim. So it might be good to use that committee because there is a little bit of crossover, because they don't have as much on the table as these two committees do. And it's not like these committees aren't also on council and ultimately have the power to vote and to provide deliberation on anything that committee brings to the table anyways, right?
it looks like Mr. Hedger is back. So now that we volunteered him to take over that project, we can tell him what we volunteered him to do.
Sorry, everyone. I was having connectivity issues. So what's going on?
Mr. Hedger,
Yes.
determining if we are going to have a car show this year is now in your committee.
Okay. Wouldn't that be normally in my committee? I guess not.
Yes, it would.
Right. It would
Yes.
normally, yes, but my whole thing is just keeping people safe. Like,
We need to really focus on the safety aspects of the car show this year.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Great minds think alike. Is there any other new business?
I would just like to say something. I don't know, that's new business. I'd just like to thank and compliment both of our chairs tonight, Mr. O'Shea and Ms. Underwood, for running both meetings and putting very good agendas together, and doing a good job leading both committees. And really, I found both meetings extremely productive, and I think it's due in no part to your guys' organization with the topics and things like that. So thank you, and job's well done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna
There
take
was no
that as a
serious
serious
disclaimer.
comment, even though you didn't say it.
right.
It was serious and legit.
Okay, so any other new business? All right, well, thank you all very much for attending. And we are adjourned at 8:34.
Be safe, everyone.